What if I told you some of the most terrifying murder mysteries in history stayed unsolved for years, only for one shocking discovery to change everything? A missing escort leads police to a serial killer hiding in plain sight. A powerful legal dynasty collapses after a double murder. A teenager vanishes on vacation, and the prime suspect finally confesses nearly 20 years later. And a young woman disappears after speaking to police, then is never seen again. These are 5 cold cases with shocking twists that stunned investigators and left the world asking one question: how did nobody see the truth sooner? Between December 2010 and April 2011, investigators along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, Long Island, uncovered multiple sets of human remains during a search for missing escort Shannan Gilbert. Investigators discovered 4 bodies in December 2010. Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainerd, Barnes, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello, later called the Gilgo Four. Search expanded in 2011, revealing 6 more sets of remains across Suffolk and Nassau counties, including Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and unidentified victims such as Asian Doe and Jane Doe No. 7. Later identified as Karen Vergata, additional remains were found in Manorville, Fire Island, and Jones Beach State Park, suggesting wider geographic spread and spanning multiple years, with some evidence dating back to the 1990s, indicating a long-running series of killings across Long Island rather than a single isolated incident across the region over time occurred. Melissa Barthelemy was last seen in 2009 in the Bronx, where she'd been living and working through Craigslist. After her disappearance, her family received disturbing phone calls linked to her device. Maureen Brainerd Barnes disappeared in 2007 after traveling to New York City from Connecticut and was later found bound with belts. Megan Waterman disappeared in June 2010 from a motel in Hauppauge, shortly after posting escort advertisements online. Amber Costello disappeared in September 2010 after leaving to meet a client who had repeatedly contacted her. This section highlights similarities between the victims, including their involvement in sex work, use of online advertisements, and physical characteristics such as petite stature. It also notes known personal circumstances such as Brainerd Barnes being a mother of 2 and Waterman being a victim of sex trafficking. Costello's background includes struggles with addiction and earlier trauma. This narrative remains focused on verified evidence, including DNA links and forensic findings, confirming the Gilgo 4 cases without introducing theories or speculative interpretations from official case records only. Sandra Costilla's remains were discovered in 1,993 inches North Sea, Long Island, later gaining significance when DNA evidence in 2024 linked her killing to Rex Hoyerman. Jessica Taylor was last seen in 2003 inches Manhattan, with partial remains later recovered in Manorville and identified through DNA analysis. Valerie Mack, missing since 2000, was found dismembered across Manorville and Cedar Beach, with identification confirmed in 2020. Karen Vergata, missing since 1996, was identified in 2023 after remains were recovered over time from Fire Island and to Bay Beach. Unidentified remains known as Asian Doe were discovered in 2011 near Gilgo Beach, believed to be a young Asian individual with unresolved identity. These findings span 2 decades, showing case extends beyond a single cluster into multiple time periods, Long Island and surrounding regions. Shannan Gilbert, a 24-year-old escort, disappeared in May 2010 after visiting a gated community in Oak Beach, New York. Her 911 call reporting that someone was pursuing her triggered an urgent search operation. She was last seen moving between homes in Oak Beach while seeking help from residents. A 9-month search ended in December 2011, when her remains were found in a marsh near Oak Beach. Her cause of death remains officially undetermined, with conflicting medical examiner conclusions and independent reviews. Her case indirectly led investigators to additional remains discovered along the same general area in subsequent searches. This shifted focus toward Ocean Parkway and surrounding regions, establishing a geographic link between cases under investigation. Her connection to other victims remains unconfirmed, and her role in the wider series is still undetermined. Investigators continued reviewing timelines, phone records, and locations to clarify movements associated with Gilbert's final known hours period. Born in 1,963 inches Massapequa Park, Rex Heuermann was educated in New York and worked as an architectural consultant in Manhattan. Investigators began focusing on Rex Heuermann in 2022 after identifying a dark green Chevrolet Avalanche connected to witness descriptions from one of the cases. Cell phone records reportedly placed him in contact with multiple victims, while digital forensic evidence revealed searches tied to violent material and victim-related information. DNA analysis involving a pizza crust and hair samples recovered from crime scenes strengthened the case, leading to his arrest in July 2023, where he was charged in connection with multiple murders, including those of the Gilgo Four. Later, legal developments included additional charges in 2024 and further indictments involving earlier victims such as Sandra Costilla and Jessica Taylor. By 2026, he pleaded guilty to 7 murders and admitted to an 8th. The section remains focused on confirmed investigative milestones, evidence categories, and established court proceedings without speculation, and avoids unverified claims or narrative interpretation beyond official records in this case. Rex Heuermann was arrested in July 2023 in connection with the Gilgo Beach serial murder investigation. He was formally charged with multiple counts of first and second-degree murder across several victims, including cases spanning from 1993 to 2010. In 2024, prosecutors issued additional indictments, expanding the scope of the case to include further victims and related charges. As the investigation progressed, forensic evidence and case-link analysis connected previously unassociated murders to the same suspect. The legal proceedings continued to evolve through successive court filings and hearings, establishing a broader timeline of criminal responsibility. In April 2026, Heuermann entered a guilty plea to 7 murders and admitted responsibility for an 8th killing. Sentencing is scheduled for June 2026, marking the next stage in the ongoing judicial process and concluding the current phase of court proceedings. All charges remain part of the consolidated court record and are pending final sentencing determination under the jurisdiction of the state court system process. On the 7th of June 2021, Margaret Maggie Murdaugh and her son Paul Murdaugh were found shot multiple times near dog kennels at the Moselle Hunting Estate in Islandton, South Carolina. Alex Murdaugh called police at 10:06 p.m. after reporting he discovered their bodies on the 1,772-acre low-country property. Both victims were shot at close range with multiple weapons. Paul was 22 and Maggie was 50, 2 years old. Initial accounts placed Alex away from the kennels with his mother, but later, investigations identified him as a person of interest. Maggie considered divorce, consulted lawyer weeks before, amid financial investigations intensifying legal empire. Following the murders, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, identified Alex Murdaugh as a person of interest early in the investigation. In July 2022, he was indicted for the murders of his wife and son. Prosecutors argued the killings were connected to his ongoing financial crimes and suggested a motive involving sympathy and distraction from exposure of fraud and embezzlement. Murdaugh pleaded not guilty and went to trial. On the 2nd of March 2023, he was convicted of both murders and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences without parole. The case gained widespread coverage across the United States and legal aftermath. In May 2026, the South Carolina Supreme Court overturned Alex Murdaugh's murder and weapons possession convictions due to jury interference. The court ruled that clerk Becky Hill's conduct compromised the fairness of the 2023 trial. Convictions were vacated and a new trial was ordered. Murdaugh remained incarcerated due to prior financial crime convictions involving fraud, theft, and embezzlement. He continues serving a 40-year sentence while prosecutors plan to retry the murder case. These financial crimes included misappropriation of settlement funds, client money, and insurance payouts, marking a major legal development and leaving his legal status complex in 2026 case outcome. In South Carolina's 14th Judicial District, the Murdaugh family held legal influence for nearly a century. From 1920 to 2006, 3 generations Randolph Murdaugh Sr., Randolph Buster Murdaugh Jr., and Randolph Murdaugh III served as circuit solicitors equivalent to district attorneys. District covered 5 low-country counties: Allendale, Colleton, Hampton, Beaufort, and Jasper. Control over prosecutions led to informal designation as Murdaugh Country. Influence extended into political and judicial networks, shaping perceptions of the local justice system. district legal culture favored settlements over trials among plaintiffs' attorneys. These factors built a dominant legal dynasty shaping regional operations and reputation. Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltsroth, and Detrick, PMPED, was a prominent South Carolina personal injury law firm connected to the Murdaugh family. In the early 2000s, it expanded rapidly, handling major corporate litigation, especially railroad injury claims. State legal reforms allowed plaintiffs to file lawsuits in counties where out-of-state companies operated, encouraging forum shopping in Hampton County. The 14th Judicial District developed a reputation as a plaintiff-friendly venue described as a judicial hellhole for defendants. PMPED benefited from this legal environment, gaining financial strength and local dominance. In 2005, reforms changed corporate venue rules, reducing forum shopping advantages and limiting case selection flexibility. Despite these changes, PMPED remained a major regional legal institution. In 2022, shortly before Alex Murdaugh's murder trial, the firm was renamed the Parker Law Group, and it became linked with growing legal controversies involving Murdaugh family. Richard Alexander Alex Murdaugh was born on the 27th of May 1968 into the influential Murdaugh legal family. He graduated from the University of South Carolina in 1990, and later from its School of Law in 1994. He joined the family law firm PMPED and also worked part-time in the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office. Alex married Margaret Maggie Branstetter and had 2 sons, Buster and Paul. Over time, he became involved in extensive legal and financial misconduct, including fraud, embezzlement, theft, and drug-related offenses spanning multiple years. These activities involved dozens of victims, many of whom were described as disadvantaged individuals. His misconduct eventually led to his disbarment, multiple indictments, and criminal investigations. By 2023, he faced over 100 criminal charges and numerous civil lawsuits. His legal career collapsed amid revelations of long-term financial crimes and abuse of client trust. Alex's background as part of a powerful legal dynasty played a central role in the public and legal scrutiny surrounding his actions. Alex Murdaugh was implicated in financial crimes including embezzlement, fraud, money laundering, and theft of settlement funds. Investigations showed he stole millions from clients, insurance settlements, and law firm accounts over many years. Victims included injured individuals, accident families, and clients with legal settlements managed through his firm. Cases involved diverted insurance payouts, including Gloria Satterfield, where settlement funds for her family were misappropriated. Other cases included Hakeem Pinkney, Blondell Gray, and Sandra Taylor's family. Investigators estimated losses up to nearly $20 million. In 2023, Murdaugh pleaded guilty and received a 2 7-year state prison sentence. He also faced federal charges over $12 million and received a 4-0-year federal sentence in 2024. These sentences ran concurrently during his imprisonment. The financial crimes formed a central pillar of the Murdaugh legal collapse, and related financial investigations across multiple legal cases, nationwide scrutiny. Stephen Smith, a 9-year-old nursing student, was found dead in 2015 from blunt force trauma on a rural road near the Moselle estate. The case was initially ruled a hit and run, but reopened in 2021. By 2023, authorities classified the death as a murder, though no arrests had been made by 2026. In 2018, Gloria Satterfield, the Murdaugh family housekeeper, died after a fall at the family home. Her death was initially reported as accidental and listed as natural causes, but investigations revealed insurance mismanagement and alleged theft of payouts intended for her sons. Following escalating investigations, Alex Murdaugh resigned from his law firm in September 2021 amid allegations of embezzlement. He was disbarred by the South Carolina Supreme Court in July 2022 due to admitted reprehensible misconduct. He was taken into custody in October 2021 without bail on fraud and murder charges. His assets were frozen and a court-appointed receivership established due to concerns about hidden or transferred funds. Murdaugh's downfall was documented in media, leading to documentaries, podcasts, and docuseries. These productions examined the collapse of a legal dynasty and criminal cases. Despite overturned murder convictions in 2026, he remained imprisoned for financial crimes and sentences. The case remains under public scrutiny, with retrial proceedings expected after the 2026 Supreme Court decision. On 30 mei 2005, 1/8 year, old Natalee Ann Holloway was last seen in Oranjestad, Aruba, outside the nightclub, Carlos and Charlie's. She had traveled to Aruba with 124 fellow graduates from Mountain Brook High School as part of an unofficial 5-day graduation trip that began on May 26. Around 1:30 AM, Holloway left the nightclub with classmates present and entered a vehicle with 7-year-old Joran Vandersloot and brothers Deepak Kalpoe and Satish Kalpoe. This moment became the final confirmed sighting of her. Holloway was scheduled to return to the United States later that same day, but she never arrived for her flight. Her luggage and passport were later found inside her hotel room at the Holiday Inn, confirming she had not checked out or departed as planned. Students were accompanied by 7 chaperones, who checked in daily but were not assigned to monitor every movement of the group as noted. Natalee Holloway missed her scheduled return flight from Aruba, prompting her family to fly to the island by private jet. Within hours of arrival, her mother Beth Twitty and stepfather provided Aruban police information identifying Joran Vandersloot as last seen with her. This identification came from a hotel night manager who recognized Vandersloot from video footage. The Twitty family and local police visited his residence shortly after arriving. During questioning, he initially denied knowing Holloway, but later gave a detailed account of the night. Authorities launched island-wide search with Aruba and U.S. volunteers, Dutch Marines on shoreline searches, civil servants assisting, banks funding, and security footage reviewed and disputed later. No physical evidence was ever found. In early June 2005, as the investigation developed, attention increasingly focused on Joran Vandersloot and brothers Deepak and Satish Kalpoe. Authorities reported that surveillance, interviews, and monitoring of communications were initiated shortly after Holloway's disappearance. These 3 individuals became primary persons of interest within days, according to investigation leadership. During questioning, the suspects provided shifting accounts of events on the night Holloway disappeared. At different times, they claimed she was dropped off near the Marriott Hotel beach area, that she left the vehicle willingly, or that she remained on the beach while they departed. These inconsistencies became a central issue for investigators attempting to reconstruct the timeline. Public statements and additional arrests added confusion, while surveillance continued but no conclusive evidence emerged during this phase of the case. On the 9th of June 2005, Aruban authorities arrested Joran Vandersloot, Deepak Kalpoe, and Satish Kalpoe on suspicion of kidnapping and murder of Natalee Holloway. The arrests were based on strong suspicion under Aruban law, requiring continued judicial review for detention. During questioning, the suspects gave conflicting accounts, including claims that Holloway was dropped near Marriott Beach, left alone, or taken by others. Vandersloot also presented multiple timelines regarding his movements. Investigators noted inconsistencies that reduced statement reliability. Surveillance, phone record analysis, and additional interrogations expanded. Officials issued and retracted statements, increasing public confusion. Kalpoe released, Sloot detained. Following the arrests and early investigations, extensive search operations continued across Aruba. Dutch Marines, Aruban volunteers, and international teams searched beaches, coastal waters, and inland areas. Despite significant manpower and resources, no remains or definitive physical evidence linked to Holloway were discovered. Advanced search methods were also deployed. The Royal Netherlands Air Force used F-16 aircraft with infrared technology to scan the island. But results were inconclusive. Later attempts included comparisons of satellite imagery and aerial photographs to identify possible burial site disturbances. Reward-backed reported leads prompted searches, including a drained pond and a landfill report from a jogger. Piece duct tape with hair strands tested not belonging to Holloway. Investigation into the disappearance of Natalee Holloway in Aruba stalled as evidence remained limited, while media attention intensified across the United States and internationally. Television networks devoted extensive coverage, with major programs regularly featuring updates, interviews, and analysis of the case, turning it into a high-profile international story. During this period, Joran van der Sloot provided conflicting accounts of events, including claims Holloway died on the morning of her disappearance and that her body was disposed of by an associate. In later interviews, he offered additional explanations, asserting she was left on the beach or that she requested to stay there. Investigative reporting introduced disputed edited audio and video recordings from private interviews, later challenged over accuracy, editing, and interpretation by commentators and legal experts. Media coverage expanded into books, documentaries, and television films, while Holloway family published accounts advocating continued investigation amid criticism of uneven media attention compared cases. In 2007, investigators renewed efforts in the Natalee Holloway case, citing newly identified evidence that led to the rearrest of Joran van der Sloot and the Calpo brothers on suspicion of manslaughter and serious bodily harm related to Holloway's death. These arrests marked a renewed attempt to build a prosecutable case after earlier releases. Search operations were again conducted at the van der Sloot family residence and Calpo residence, using probing tools and detailed examinations, but no significant evidence was recovered. Courts ultimately ruled insufficient evidence to continue detention, leading to releases by December 2007 and case closure on the 18th of December 2007, though public attention continued through media and interviews. In 2010, Joran van der Sloot became involved in a separate legal case connected to the Natalee Holloway investigation. He contacted representatives of Holloway's family and offered to reveal information about the location of her remains in exchange for money. After law enforcement involvement, a controlled payment was arranged, and van der Sloot later received funds recorded as part of an investigation. Authorities determined the information provided was false, leading to charges in the United States for extortion and wire fraud and indictment. He was also arrested in Peru for the murder of Stephanie Flores Ramirez and made statements about Holloway during questioning. In 2012, he pleaded guilty to murder and received a 28-year sentence in Peru. Statements continued disputed. In June 2023, Joran van der Sloot was extradited from Peru to the United States while serving a sentence for the murder of Stephanie Flores Ramirez and transferred to federal custody in Alabama to face charges of extortion and wire fraud related to the Natalee Holloway case. Following his arrival, he was arraigned and pleaded not guilty to the charges. However, in October 2023, he provided a formal confession in a proffer letter acknowledging responsibility for killing Natalee Holloway, stating he used physical force after she rejected his advances and claimed he disposed of her body in the ocean. This marked his first formal admission, though Holloway's remains were never recovered, leaving the case unresolved for nearly 2 decades despite the confession. In 2026, legal proceedings continued across multiple jurisdictions. Sade Carlina Robinson, the 10th of May 2004, April 1 or 2, 2024, was a 19-year-old college student whose disappearance began this case. Born in 2004, she was a college student at the time of events in 2024 inches, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She was reported missing on the 2nd of April 2024 after last being seen with the 3-year-old Maxwell Stephen Anderson on a date at a seafood restaurant where he worked. Her disappearance quickly raised concern, prompting an immediate search and early investigation by law enforcement. Within the same day, evidence suggested possible serious harm, and the case escalated with later discoveries of remains linked to Robinson. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. Investigation continued further on the 2nd of April 2024. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the same day Sade Robinson was reported missing, authorities discovered a severed human leg in a nearby park. Preliminary DNA testing later confirmed the remains belonged to Robinson, establishing that she had suffered fatal injuries shortly after her disappearance was reported. Law enforcement quickly expanded their search efforts, and the identification marked the first physical evidence in the case, shifting it toward homicide investigation. The discovery also provided an initial geographic point tied to the case, prompting searches in surrounding areas and raising urgent concerns about additional remains nearby. At this stage, full extent remained unknown, but evidence indicated violent incidents shortly after disappearance. Following the initial discovery, additional human remains linked to Sade Robinson were recovered weeks after her disappearance. On the 18th of April 2024, a passerby along a Lake Michigan beach discovered a torso and arm. These remains were tested and confirmed to belong to Robinson, confirming dismemberment. Nearly a month later, a human arm was found at Waukegan Municipal Beach. This arm was confirmed as Robinson's through forensic testing across Lake Michigan locations. Body recovery in multiple locations complicated the investigation, requiring coordination between jurisdictions and forensic teams. Authorities continued searching, as not all remains had been recovered. Each discovery increased urgency and reinforced the violent nature of the crime. The search for remains remained active as law enforcement worked to piece together timeline and circumstances. However, motive and full sequence of events still remained unknown throughout the investigation process continued ongoing. As the investigation progressed, law enforcement conducted searches related to potential suspects and locations tied to the case. One significant development occurred when authorities searched Maxwell Stephen Anderson's residence. During this search, blood was reportedly found on the walls of the home. The blood evidence was subjected to forensic testing. Results determined that the blood did not belong to Sade Robinson. It was later confirmed through additional analysis that the blood was canine in origin, according to police reports. This finding clarified that the substance was not directly linked to Robinson, though it remained part of the broader evidentiary record in the investigation. Remains found multiple locations. Investigators continued probing. Maxwell Stephen Anderson, born the 26th of May 1990, was identified as the primary suspect in the death of Sade Robinson. A longtime resident of Waukesha County, Wisconsin, Anderson lived in Pewaukee for most of his life. He served in the United States Navy from April 2011 to January 2012, with circumstances of discharge unclear. In the years leading up to the incident, Anderson worked as a bartender at several Milwaukee establishments. This included a seafood restaurant where he had previously worked and where he and Robinson reportedly went on a date. He also had a documented criminal history across Waukesha County and Door County between 2014 and 2022. His record included domestic abuse, drunk driving, and disorderly conduct. The combination of his background and connection to Robinson led law enforcement to focus on him, though no confirmed motive was established. No confirmed motive. Maxwell Stephen Anderson was arrested on the 4th of April 2024, 2 days after Sade Robinson was reported missing. And shortly after, the initial discovery of human remains. Following his arrest, he was held in custody as law enforcement continued their investigation into the homicide case. On the 12th of April 2024, Anderson was formally charged with multiple serious offenses, including first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson. Charges reflected the severity of the evidence collected and ongoing findings in the case. His arrest marked a significant turning point, shifting the investigation from a missing person case to a fully developed homicide prosecution. Anderson remained in custody as legal proceedings advanced. Investigators continued gathering forensic and circumstantial evidence from multiple locations, recovered remains, and detailed forensic analysis. Despite the charges, key aspects of the case, particularly motive, remained unresolved during the initial proceedings. Sade Robinson's case in Milwaukee drew a strong emotional response from the local community and beyond as the investigation unfolded. As details of the investigation emerged, public attention intensified, especially after the discovery of multiple body parts confirmed to belong to Robinson. The lead assistant district attorney described the killing and dismemberment as the highest level of violence imaginable during court proceedings and official statements. Community members organized a pink-out event on Maxwell Anderson's front lawn, turning the area into a makeshift memorial for Robinson. The memorial included balloons, posters, flowers, and stuffed animals symbolizing collective grief and remembrance across the community. In addition, Anderson's father publicly expressed condolences and sympathy toward the Robinson family, acknowledging the tragedy and its impact. Later, in September 2024, a mural of Sade Robinson was painted near the entrance of Pizza Shuttle, a Milwaukee restaurant where she had previously worked, serving as lasting tribute. The legal proceedings against Maxwell Stephen Anderson continued following his arrest and formal charges. The case moved through the court system, where evidence from the investigation, including forensic findings and recovered remains, was presented. On June 6, 2025, a jury found Anderson guilty on all counts. The verdict confirmed his responsibility for first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson as charged by the prosecution. The jury's decision concluded the trial phase of the case, establishing legal accountability based on the evidence presented during proceedings. The guilty verdict reflected the outcome of the prosecution's case built from investigative findings, forensic analysis, and recovered evidence connected to the crime. Following the verdict, the case moved towards sentencing with guilt, established formally. On the 1st of August 2025, Maxwell Stephen Anderson was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Sade Robinson. Following sentencing, he was incarcerated at Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin. Despite the conclusion of the trial and sentencing, Anderson's motive for killing Robinson remained unknown. This unanswered question continued to be a point of unresolved context in the case even after legal proceedings had ended. Community aftermath impacted those connected to Robinson. Memorials including Pink Out Event and Milwaukee Mural reflected remembrance. Case notable for scale of violence described by prosecutors and multiple locations where remains discovered. Legal process ended life sentence, yet emotional and social effects persisted. Responsibility established. Emma Fillipoff, born the 6th of January 1986, is a Canadian woman who has been missing since the 28th of November 2012. Her early life in Canada includes limited publicly available details about her childhood and upbringing. She later moved from Perth, Ontario to Victoria, British Columbia in the fall of 2011, marking a major transition in her life as she entered a new environment and began working in Victoria. Available records emphasize a documented timeline based on locations and recorded interactions rather than detailed personal biography, and the focus of the case quickly shifts toward her adult life in Victoria, including employment, housing instability, and the circumstances leading up to her disappearance. This section establishes her identity and transitions into the key investigative phase of her life in Victoria and beyond 2012 case. In the fall of 2011, Emma Fillipoff arrived in Victoria, British Columbia, after moving from Perth, Ontario. Her time in the city marked the beginning of the documented period leading to her disappearance. She worked briefly at Redfish Bluefish Seafood Restaurant in Victoria's Inner Harbor on a seasonal basis. She left the position on the 31st of October 2012, telling co-workers she planned to return in the spring. After leaving, she remained in Victoria as her circumstances became increasingly uncertain in the following months. She intermittently stayed at the Sandy Merriman House Women's Shelter, unknown to her family at time. In the weeks leading up to the 28th of November 2012, Emma Fillipoff's activities in Victoria showed signs of preparation for potential relocation. On November 21, she hired a tow truck to move her red 1993 Mazda MPV from Sook to the Chateau Victoria parking garage. Police later believe this action may have been part of preparations for a possible return to Ontario, although this was not confirmed. Her living situation remained unstable, as she had been staying intermittently at the Sandy Merriman House Women's Shelter since February without her family's knowledge. On November 23, she was captured on security footage at the Victoria YMCA. Footage showed her entering, leaving, and re-entering, while calls to her mother ended with uncertainty and arrival plans. On the 28th of November 2012, Emma Fillipoff was recorded on security footage at a 7-Eleven on Government Street in Victoria, purchasing a prepaid mobile phone. She hesitated before leaving the store, appearing to check the street, then returned to purchase a $200 prepaid credit card. Later that day, she left the Sandy Merriman House Women's Shelter around 6 p.m. and hailed a taxi toward Victoria International Airport. She exited the taxi before reaching the airport due to insufficient fare, despite possessing the prepaid card. The prepaid phone was never activated, and her credit card was later recovered under unrelated circumstances timeline established. Between 7:15 p.m. and 8 p.m. on the 28th of November 2012, Emma Fillipoff was last seen near the Empress Hotel in Victoria, British Columbia, barefoot and in visible distress. Dennis Quay called emergency services, and officers from the Victoria Police Department, Vic PD, responded, speaking with her for approximately 45 minutes. They recorded her name, assessed her situation, and determined she did not pose a threat, releasing her afterward. This encounter at the Empress Hotel is the final confirmed sighting of her, with no further verified sightings that evening. Later, police met her mother at Sandy Merriman House Shelter, and she was missing person. Following Emma Fillipoff's disappearance in Victoria, police reported she was last seen with friends on Burdett Avenue between Blanchard and Quadra Streets. Investigators pursued over 200 leads, most yielding limited information. Evidence suggested she may have planned to return Ottawa. No confirmation she left Victoria. A prepaid cell phone purchased on November 28 was never activated. Her red 1993 Mazda MPV was found at the Chateau Victoria parking lot, containing belongings including passport, camera, clothing, laptop, and books. A credit card was found near Juan de Fuca Community Center and later used for cigarettes, tracked by police. Location remained unknown. In June 2018, a man reported picking up a young woman in distress, matching Emma Fillipoff's description in Esquimalt the morning after her disappearance, though the account surfaced years later and added a potential lead. In the summer of 2018, another witness named William came forward describing an encounter with a woman the morning after she went missing, prompting renewed investigative activity. This led to a search of the View Royal area in December 2018, which did not produce additional clues, though further searches were planned. Earlier leads included 2014 Vancouver poster incident and Green Shirt Man, none identified yet. Emma Fillipoff's disappearance received extensive coverage in Canadian and international media. In 2013, it was featured on the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation program The Fifth Estate in an episode titled Finding Emma. The case was later discussed on true crime podcasts, including True Crime Garage in 2016 and The 16 AG End. Vanished in 2017. Vice covered the disappearance in 2017, expanding international awareness. In 2020, the Nighttime podcast released Emma Fillipoff is Missing, featuring interviews with her mother Shelley, friends, and investigators. A 6-hour docuseries, Barefoot in the Night, is in development, with no release date announced. Police appeals continue. Images released. In March 2016, Emma Fillipoff's mother and brother were charged with money laundering and drug and weapons offenses following an Ontario Provincial Police investigation. Shelley Fillipoff stated that the charges were unrelated to Emma's disappearance. In November 2016, all charges against Shelley Fillipoff were dropped, clearing her of involvement. This legal development is noted as separate from the missing person investigation. Throughout the case, investigators have continued to pursue leads, but Emma Fillipoff remains missing. Police have released additional images and appeals to the public, including updated visuals and age progression images in 2022. The case remains open and ongoing today. Some of these cases finally got answers, while others remain surrounded by mystery, even today. But one thing is certain: every twist changed the investigation forever and revealed truths nobody expected. Now I want to hear from you. Which case shocked you the most? And do you think there are still secrets that haven't been uncovered? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime documentaries, unsolved mysteries, and shocking criminal cases. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next case.